Well, YouTube. There we go. It took a while. Hi, everybody. Let me give a little ding to get us going here. Hello, one and all. Welcome to Satsang. I was sitting here staring at the screen you may have seen because simply YouTube was telling me that I didn't have, I'm going live and not that I did. So there's the chat. Very good. I'm assuming everybody can hear me. Okay, and everything is working. So welcome to Satsang today. As always, if this is your first time visiting Satsang, by all means, please say so. I gave this one the title of Non-Duality and Manifestation, and I've gotten a lot of questions of late. And it comes up sometimes on Satsang and during Satsang, and sometimes either in the comments and things like that. And of course, many of you know I have a lot of videos on YouTube, and I did some about manifestation and how that whole thing works. So I really wanted to spend a moment and be very clear about what it is, because in our modern world, everything kind of gets mixed together. Non-duality and other kinds of spirituality or yoga or meditation. It gets mixed up with personal development and psychological things, and I wanted it to be really clear what the distinction between manifesting your dreams, and because manifestation is a reality, it does happen, it's happening all the time. But what does that have to do with non-duality? Is there an overlap? And if I can just take a moment and clarify it, non-duality is a search for truth. It is a deep inner examination, the point of which being that you come to see yourself as you really are. It is a means of clearing away all of the illusions and delusions and mistaken assumptions and beliefs we have about ourselves to get to the pure truth of our being. There's nothing in that is motivated by some kind of results you're going to get because you've done that. Almost all practices, there's some kind of goal in mind. You're going through the practice, taking the steps to achieve a certain outcome. It might be a very materialistic outcome, like have more money or something like that. It might be emotional, like a good relationship. It might be healthy. It could even be spiritual, going through this because eventually you're going to become purified and become enlightened. Non-duality starts from the premise that you are already everything that you're seeking, that you just have learned to believe yourself to be something other than that. And that's the key difference. There's nothing to attain per se in non-duality. There's only the loss of that which is not true. You are simply peeling away everything that isn't really you. Now, the net effect of that is that it does have a deeply profound impact on your everyday life. Of course it would, right? I mean, it would only make sense that as you see yourself more clearly, as old conditioned patterns fall away, as old assumptions and negative judgments of yourself fall away, that your energy, your vibration is going to raise, and you are going to have a very different experience in your everyday life. And so it's very subtle, because all of those things do end up happening, but they are not the point. And if they are the point, you're not practicing non-duality. You're not really practicing spirituality. you are doing self-help, you are doing personal development, you're doing manifestation work or law of attraction or something like that. You are not doing the inquiry, because the heart and soul of the inquiry isn't the results you get, but the truth that you discover. Christ put it beautifully. He said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these other things will be added to you." So it's a matter of, where is the focus of our attention? So starting from the point of view that you are already this perfect, unlimited, illimitable, inexhaustible consciousness, is a very different very different starting point than thinking of yourself as being limited and finite and trying to overcome those. The means, no matter how elaborate the means are, the attempt to overcome them puts it all off into the future. Sometime in the future, I will be full, I will be abundant, I will be happy, I will be content. And if anybody's ever gone through that process, which I probably think most of us here have, you know that that future moment never arises. You can't be happy, content in the future, because the future is just this idea we have. It's either now or it's never. The true contentment, the lasting, permanent contentment, must be present now. If it isn't, then it too is something that comes and goes. And the best we can hope for in our lives is, you know, is the is good luck. Stuff just happens to come to you. Be born in a good family and have enough money and just happen to meet the right person and all that. That's it. Shiva's wheel is all there is. But the depth of and the consistent message of spiritual teachers throughout all time has always been, there is a deep peace, contentment that is present now. More than present now. Because even in that, you can see there's a slight duality. There's me, and then there's the contentment that I'm seeking. And now I may not be looking out there for it, I'm looking in here for it, right? Happiness, genuine contentment or peace, is the nature of your being. It is happiness that is hearing my words, just like it's truth that's hearing my words. It is love that is hearing my word. Those are words. Those are all names for the same consciousness. Sometimes we use that word consciousness and it can seem rather clinical, right? Or scientific, right? Another word for it is love, peace, harmony, happiness. The discovery is that that is what you are. Now, notice in everything I've just been saying, no talk whatsoever about what impact that might have on your life. Now, it's true that many people have come to a deeper understanding of themselves and a deeper appreciation of genuine spirituality through the the portal, the path of trying to manifest a better life. And of course, you can. Everything is consciousness. So whatever you believe to be true will be experienced as a concrete manifestation. The deepest beliefs you have manifest themselves in what we call the physical plane or the physical world. It isn't a physical plane. There is no physical world. It is nothing but consciousness. But the barrier is that we believe that it is something external to ourselves, and it isn't. Now, if you just take that information superficially, you'll be off and running, off to the races on trying to make some kind of a manifestation take place. The problem with that is the motivation behind trying to manifest something in your life is always to try to overcome some inherent feeling of lack. Very rarely do we actually challenge the sense of lack itself, to go directly to that feeling and say, wait a minute, is this really true? Now, mind you, if what we are believing and assuming and feeling is what takes shape in our experience, the belief in lack is going to manifest itself as lack, period. And no matter how hard we try to focus our attention or raise our vibration, even if there's a little bit of success, if that fundamental assumption of lack is never challenged and eradicated, we will never get any kind of trustworthy results. Once it is eradicated, the entire shift of perception happens, so that it's no longer about acquiring anything, because there's no sense of lack to get. There's never a feeling that anything is missing, and at that point, life becomes creative expression. It becomes a flow. There's nothing to get from it. That there's an infinite resources to give to it, and that's the key difference. Now, in the process, somebody had asked a question about, on one hand, you say there's no chooser and there's nobody doing the choosing, and then on another instance, you'll say where you focus your attention. Well, they're not contradictory. Aren't you choosing to focus your attention? Where your attention gets focused is primarily an expression of your assumptions about life and your deep beliefs. So when you're looking at where your attention is going, if it just becomes a practice, I'm going to remove my attention from that now, without an understanding of what the real energy behind it is, it's then just a practice. You're just kind of putting a band-aid, you're putting lipstick on the pig. Um, this is the case with a lot of practices. Matter of fact, most of the practices I've seen in the law of attraction kind of thing have been that, an attempt to just shift our attention over to here without actually examining the energy that's putting it in that direction in the first place, making it just like it's like a bunch of thoughts that I'm going to start thinking different thoughts. Those thoughts originate from someplace. They are, it's indicative of what you believe. But if you start to challenge the underlying assumptions about these beliefs, a very different thing starts to emerge. You won't have to force yourself to put your attention somewhere else. It will naturally do that. If there's a TV show you used to watch and now it's gotten old, they've run out of ideas and it's not funny. You don't watch it anymore, but you don't have to discipline yourself to put your attention somewhere else, right? It just happens because it's not interesting anymore. When when you're a child, a child can be walking around with their teddy bear, right? Or their bunny or whatever it is for a long, long time. And all of a sudden one day it's just forgotten. There's no practice of withdrawing from it. It's just, yeah, grow it. So non-duality is existential. It is not, it is not tactical. It's not even strategic. It is not a means to an end. To be successful, if I can use that term, in non-dual inquiry, is to make it the search for truth for truth's sake, for no other reason than it's the truth. And what is more valuable? What could possibly be more valuable than the truth? So I don't know if I've covered every single aspect of that, because I do encourage people to focus your attention in better places. This isn't an absolute thing. It's not totally cut and dry, right? Yeah, don't ever do that. You need to do that. I mean, don't listen to any teacher who tells you like that, anything like that. my attempt is to bring understanding. If you understand something, beliefs fall away, and the practices that went with those beliefs fall away. You don't have to make yourself do something anymore. You simply understand it. And understanding is what I'm after here. Understanding is what I want to convey and evoke. So on that note, I'm going to take a sip of my kombucha. I really love this stuff. And Rob Vickery, hello from London. Hello, Rob. Dave, hi from Massachusetts. Carrie Brogan, hi, Carrie. Wouter, hi, GP, from the Netherlands again. Hi from Spain, from Eric, Enrique, Benito Oliver. Rob Vickery, thank you for answering my recent questions on your other videos. Good, good, good. Carrie Brogan, hi from Australia. Hi, Carrie. John Watson, hi from Glasgow. Noel Smeets, hi from the Netherlands. Hi, Noel. I am new here. Good. Welcome. First time. I love it. I love it. Wonderful. Daniel Burr. Hi, GP. Hi again from Denmark. Hi, you guys. Hello from Germany, from Anja. Eva, namaste from Poland. Janet McGowan. Hi, GP. Another shout out from Glasgow. God, I love you guys. Chris Gills. Hello, GP. The mind says, okay, is this all? What is there must be more to it? Then mind is trying to cling on to something and be the one who takes credit for the awakening. Awakening mind is going mad. Yes, one of the wonderful benefits of truly immersing yourself in non-dual understanding is you become really, really adept at spotting how the mind works. The mind will always say, is this it? It can't be this simple. There has to be more. Why? Because without that, it doesn't exist. There is nothing there for it. And for the mind, and the mind is simply discursive thought. It is simply the way in which the dualistic veil is maintained. It assumes a subject-object relationship. The real nature of non-duality, that is not two, inner unity, oneness, is inconceivable to the mind. It is inconceivable to thought. Now, don't think of the mind as just some kind of an object, some kind of entity there that's trying to interfere with you. It's simply patterns of thoughts. And all patterns of thoughts are sustained by there being this subject-object relationship. As you dive into the non-dual experience and the subject-object relationship begins to dissolve, because you do not have a subject-object relationship with yourself. You can't. In doing so, we create an image of ourselves, which then creates a subject-object relationship. We think the object is us, and therein lies the big mistake. We now start thinking of ourselves, describing ourselves in terms of a bunch of attributes and characteristics. And then those attributes and characteristics, we project onto that the sense of that being an actual self. So somebody will say, I'm a happy person, I'm smart, I'm energetic, I'm clever, I'm male, I'm female, I'm Catholic, I'm Christian, I'm Buddhist. All of those become ways of the mind establishing a subject-object relationship between you and yourself. But obviously there isn't one. There's no anywhere else, everything else in the universe is a subject-object relationship. So you look at your car, look at your shoes, look at your house, look at your friends, and and your attention can go there. Boom, there's you, and then there's them. But I say to you, look at you. Now the mind will present a picture of you like a mirror or a video on YouTube or something like that. Right. I'll say, but that's not you. That's an image of you. Put the attention on you. And you notice you cannot do it. You cannot step outside of yourself and look back at yourself, which means that all of the knowledge we have acquired through this sense of a subject-object relationship is moot. It's not true. It can't be true because it's based on a false assumption. You cannot know yourself as an object. But you still know yourself, don't you? You know you are. You know you exist. You know you're here. Right? If I ask you, do you exist? The answer will be an absolute yes. I ask if you are aware. The answer will be again an absolute yes. So this knowing is different. Self-knowledge is different. And to the mind, which it can still be very active, right? And many of us here have very good minds, very, very powerful, very smart minds, right? They can still be very active. And so this kind of information, this total non-dual insight, which is what being aware is, the thought pattern that we call the mind has nowhere to put this. It does not fit. So it's going to go, well, this can't be it. I need more information. Well, there isn't any more information. That's it. This is the big confusion about awakening and enlightenment. There isn't any other information. This is it. Aware of being aware, that is your being. That is your existence. It is pure consciousness. Consciousness conscious of itself. It is a pure unity. It's not subject-object anymore. And so it is an intuitive knowing. And that also is happiness, peace, contentment. That is where you find it all. So thank you for that, Chris. And just notice that the habit of the mind to do that will persist for a while. And your job is to simply recognize it through your understanding, which is growing, to recognize it as a habit pattern of thought and simply withdraw your attention from it. Don't give it any more credit or any more, and lose interest in it. Just see, oh, there's that pattern again, right? And that's not a big deal. It's not a problem that these habits continue, that there's some momentum to it. We just don't let yourself get sucked back into it again. Let me make sure we're recording over here, and we are. Okay, good. Oh, okay. Let's see. Carrie Brogan says, "I have a real resistance to waking up." Carrie, I'm going to recommend that you stop for a second and look at that thought. I have a resistance to waking up. Can pure conscious awareness, what you are, have a resistance to itself? Do you have any resistance to being aware? Are you resisting knowing that you are? Or is it just always there? Isn't even the thought, I am resisting waking up, itself not at all resisted? It's already appeared. Awareness has already let it in. Right? The I this thought is pointing at is an image in the mind, a picture of someone feeling certain sensations in the body, and then a story happens that says, oh, this is me resisting waking up. You are the awareness that is aware of that I and of the resistance and of the story that it's resistance to waking up. Is that awareness of all of that in any state of resistance whatsoever? Now, really look closely. Just because a thought comes and it comes in first person doesn't make it so. Who is that I referring to? Is that another way of looking at it? Is if you trace that thought back to its origin, is its origin coming from pure awareness, or is it coming from the belief in a separate self? Could pure awareness say, I am resistant to being aware? Couldn't do it. So this thought is not referring to you, because you are pure awareness, you are consciousness. It is referring to an image in the mind of you separate from awakening, trying to get there. Are you following me? Is everybody following me? Because that's the image we have. Remember, I said in the beginning, non-duality starts from the premise that you are already right now that pure awareness, not someone on a spiritual path to get there. Non-duality is the direct path. It is not the progressive path. It is not the path of, of refinement and maturity and all of that. It is the path of direct seeing. Isn't this entire thing happening to awareness? Are you not aware? So that thought isn't true because it refers to a sense of self which is not true. It is simply an energetic pattern of thought and emotion and sensation that arose within the system and became identified as me. So the mind holds on to that image of itself because it can't grasp the non-objective nature of the true self. But that's what's viewing it. Could this thought exist? I have a real resistance to waking up. Could that thought exist without you being aware of it? Awareness doesn't need to wake up, then, does it? You're already awake because you're already seeing it. You're simply believing a thought that says you're not. But it is the awakeness that allows that thought to exist. Is everybody following this? It's very important. It's very important because it's such a subtle thing. This is the direct path, not a progressive path. The direct path is the understanding, the direct recognition right in this moment of what is actually your experience. And your experience is that of being aware of everything. And without that awareness, nothing exists. Whether that thought be referring to pure consciousness, or if it's something completely removed, a completely different version of yourself. Does that help, Carrie? I hope so. I hope it helps everyone. It's very subtle. We have to become very adept at, at noticing how the thoughts revolve around a particular self-image. It's very subtle. The image itself is a compilation. There's not a thing, a separate self somewhere, and you can point to it like the man behind the curtain, right? Producing all this stuff. The sense of a separate self is just that. It's a sense. It's a feeling. It is kind of an assumption that thoughts revolve around and then implement, but there's no separate self there. It is a ghost in the machine. So you're not somebody on the path. You are already that. Now that the mind cannot grasp. It'll go, what? No, that can't be, because it's looking for its evidence of it, right? Especially if you heard any non-dual stories and the like, the minds go, isn't it supposed to be, heaven's parting and angels singing, and I can manifest anything I want. I can wave my hand and produce a Rolex watch or something. No, it's none of that. The mind wants that. It wants that kind of of uh, of proof. It needs to have evidence. You don't need any evidence of your true being. Christ was once asked about doing a sign, and he said a perverse and faithless generation asks for a sign, and no sign will be given them. What he was pointing to was that tendency of the mind to want to glom onto some circumstance. It's looking for some kind of visible evidence in order to be convinced. But of course, as you all know, it won't be convinced. It'll then start looking for some other evidence. Your mind is not a help here. Your mind is not gonna be of any benefit to you in this go round. Put your attention on the awareness of these thoughts, and then it doesn't matter what the thought is. It it's very easy to spot. Oh, pure awareness, the great I am, cannot possibly say, I'm resisting this. Can't happen. Or I'm afraid. Or I'm lacking. Those thoughts do not emerge from your true being. They can't. So they emerge from the false sense of being. And seeing through that is what Satsang and non-duality is all about. Dale, hello from Massachusetts. First snowflakes of the season just started. Oh, beautiful. We don't get much snow out here in Washington, although last year we got deluged. Sarah Sands, hi, great to be here with my spiritual family. Sarah from France, hi Sarah. Catherine London, hi GP. I've been watching documentaries about NDE. I'm not really sure what NDE. What's anybody tell me what NDE is? Non-dual experience? Oh, maybe it's non-dual experience. They all talk about the light, unconditional love, and the journey of soul through incarnations. That's not non-duality. I don't know what NDE that is. Then, no, near-death experiences. That's what it is. It's an experience. Non-duality goes beyond all experience to the experiencer, right? Which is you, which isn't an experience. Your being isn't an experience you're having, right? Because all experience comes and goes, right? When the experience it goes, you don't go with it. You're not gone, oblivion, right? So what does non-duality say about this? What is the soul identified consciousness? I'd like to have your insights on this. Thanks. Yes, it is an experience. Now, I don't want to just poo-poo it, say it's meaningless, because it's quite meaningful, because there's many experiences that we have where that the veil of our assumptions about the way things are gets peeled back. A lot of people have experiences like this, and they lose their fear of death. The same thing has actually happened on the if you ever saw the movie or read the book The Spirit Molecule, where they did tests using psilocybin on people and on terminally ill people, actually, and they lost their fear of death because a veil got pulled back, right? And a near-death experience is a very similar thing. Suddenly, it does have a profound impact on you, right? And I'm not saying that they aren't authentic, right? That it's like imaginary or something. It's not. It's a step out of that. But oftentimes you'll find that when people talk about their near-death experiences, they then they then project upon that experience their particular belief system, right? The because the mind, of course, has an experience that's completely outside of what it's used to, and it can't just leave it like that. It has to take it, categorize it, put it into some kind of context to make it fit. It just can't completely abandon itself, right? So it's going to project upon it. So it's interesting that how people would meet some being, and for the Christian that experiences this, they met Jesus, right? Somebody else meets Buddha, somebody else meets Muhammad, right? There's the it's a great light. It's a tunnel. Um, they they project upon an experience that is completely outside of any context that we have, but not being able to just go, I have just left everything. Starts becoming interpreted from some framework that makes us feel more comfortable. And that's how it's how we do everything. And any kind of experience you have, we tend to want, you see anything new, what does your mind do? It starts trying to compare it with what you already know. Oh, what is that? Oh, I know, it's kind of like this, like this, like this. This is the way the mind works. It categorizes, it generalizes, it compares attributes because it wants to come up with an object that it can sink its teeth into. And so one of the reasons why non-dual inquiry, as it deepens, becomes quite fascinating, because ultimately you find that there are no objects, that it is a constant flow of transformation, and there's nothing actually being transformed. So there are no things. No thing actually exists. There is only the self, thinking about the self. And the stuff that everything is made of is the self, pure awareness, pure consciousness. So near death experiences, like the experience of plant medicine, or the experience of an intense emotional, any intense emotional experience, or some kind of hardship where you're injured some way permanently, all bring about a shift in perception that pretty much all the time eventually then gets um, usurped into an interpretation of it that will allow it to make sense to the mind, because the mind wants that. The reality is that you don't die. Nothing ever dies, because nothing ever really is. The only thing there is consciousness. So all of the things that appear to consciousness have no real existence. They never began, and therefore they don't end. They don't have a birth, and therefore they do not have a death. Everything is a constant transformation. And so every second, billions of times a second, is death and resurrection, or birth and death, however you want to put it. Um, and so the actual experience itself isn't nearly as important as the impact it has for almost all of these people, is that they simply lose their fear of death, and there's a deep embracing of life, and there is a shift in their values, because the energy of situation and the fear of death, which we try to compensate for our whole lives, not being there anymore, liberates the natural, creative, compassionate energy of the human being. And suddenly it's all that energy going into compensating for the sense of lack and the fear of death is now freed up, and it goes into other channels. And so it has a remarkable impact. And it reveals that the veil between one life and the next is not as hard and fast as we think it is. It's pretty flimsy, actually. And it's only the our assumptions about life that make life after death and life before birth seem as if there's something remarkable and miraculous. They're not. You're experiencing it all the time. Life and death is happening constantly, which is why I say there isn't any death because there's no birth. Everything is right now. And that's to grasp that, you see that everything is an appearance of what is. An appearance doesn't have a beginning and an end. If I see a face in a cloud, oh, wow, that's great. I see Jesus or the Virgin Mary or some beautiful person there, right? I don't say, oh, the person died. They were never there in the first place. They were all a projection. It was an appearance. What is the awareness of it, and that neither has never been born and will never die. It just is. Consciousness is what is, and everything else is what is appearing to it. But none of these things have any life to them other than consciousness. Therefore, there is no thing, there is no birth, there is no death, there is no beginning, there is no end, there is only this. I think I'll let that go for now. Thank you, Catherine. Hope that was a satisfying answer. Sylvia. Hello, Sylvia. Dear GP, even though I'm on the spiritual path, I'm addicted to gambling since 20 years. I suffer, I fight, sometimes I accept. I try therapy. Nothing really works. Please help me. Sylvia, Germany. Well, Sylvia. My dear. Having been somebody who has wrestled with those kinds of things, I certainly understand the predicament. I understand the power of these habitual patterns. And in fact, while this particular one, has a, a quite a negative consequences for your life, everybody experiences this. The thought we get ourselves stuck in thinking the same thoughts over and over again. What's happened is that originally there was something missing, right? Because of course if you identify yourself with the separate self, there's going to be a feeling that something is missing, and that feeling of something being missing, being disconnected from the truth of who you are, which to me is what the soul means. The soul is the truth of your being, right? The real you. And when there's a sense of being disconnected from that, and with identification of the separate self, that hole remains. And then we try to fill that hole up through all sorts of different things to try to compensate for it, through achievement, through relationships, through all sorts of addictions, sex, shopping, all the substances, relationships, anger. All of these things are ways in which we try to compensate for the hole. All of them eventually become self-fulfilling because you see the negative consequences of it. But in the moment of choice, those negative consequences, you don't see them, you don't feel them. You don't feel them until later, right? And so in that moment, relief is much more important than not addiction. And that's the cycle, right? Now, from the point of view of spirituality and non-dual inquiry, the key is coming to see through the illusion of a separate self, as we're doing here. And you say you're on the spiritual path and you're listening to satsang, which is wonderful. I would also encourage you to not give up on therapy. Try things, EFT, EMDR, hypnotherapy, anything that helps you transition your nervous system out of this dependency. I don't like to say, okay, it's all spiritual, you're just going to get rid of the sense of being a separate self, because it may take more than that. It may take some very practical support. And in fact, one of the things that keeps us in addictive patterns is we're embarrassed of it. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to tell anybody else about it. It's embarrassing. That's probably the worst part of all the addictions is the incredibly horrible effect it has on our sense of self-worth and our sense of dignity. Um, so I thank you so much for oops, do we freeze? Oh, I thank you so much for bringing this up and having the courage to do that. So on one hand, you continue your spiritual, whatever that might be, to finally once and for all see through the illusion of a separate self, and, and continue a meditative practice. But look into, don't give up on the therapies, don't give up on yourself. Um, there's all sorts of things available, and there's all sorts of people that are there to help you. And if it's a money problem, you'll find dozens of videos on YouTube that involve self-hypnosis and EFT meditation for these kinds of things, because it is your birthright to be free. And these addictions that we acquire do not define us. They are not who you are. And I know that it feels as if you are it's degrading, it's an embarrassing and all of that, but it need not be any of that. There's no there's nothing uh, afflicting you that is not common to man. Your story is my story, is everybody's story. We all have it in some certain degree. There's just a natural dependency on the mind to want to gravitate towards these matters, especially if it had a moment of relief, right? If for a moment that that aching, that aching that we feel, that empty feeling has been resolved, the nervous system is going to go for it. If it's been quieted for a moment, the nervous system is going to want to go back to it. That's what you're experiencing. It's not a weakness on your part. It is not a personal aspersion. There's nothing wrong with you. Realize that this is simply a pattern that you've fallen into unconsciously, and the very fact that you are looking so diligently for a way out means consciousness is awakening. And so we're just cleaning it all up. We're doing everything we can to clean out all of the things that made you dependent on it in the first place. So I hope that answers. There, the more work you do inwardly, and the more you are accepting of yourself and noticing that this is a condition of the nervous system. This is part of the conditioning and not who you are. The more I think the various kinds of therapies and techniques will be effective for you. There's even a book I know of. It's written, I can't remember the guy's name now. He's not alive anymore, but he wrote a whole bunch of them. It's called The Easy Way. His method is the easy way. And there's an easy way to quit smoking, an easy way to quit drinking, an easy way to quit gambling, fear of flying. I mean, they did a whole bunch of them because it's a very unique approach. You might want to pick up that book. And there are actually a group, he's not around anymore, but a lot of groups that will still actually do processes and work with people on it. So you're coming at it from two different sides, but the most important thing to recognize is that you are this pure awareness, and this is happening in front of the pure awareness. Who you are is that pure awareness, and it has no addiction. You can tell because it was there before an addiction appeared, and it'll be there after it's gone, and it will have no attachment to it whatsoever. That's the nature, the open, accepting, loving, uh, perfect, resistless uh, uh, state, not a state, nature of awareness, which is what you are. You are the consciousness that is aware of it, and it cannot survive without you. You can quite survive without it. Does that help you? Thank you for sharing that with all of us, Sylvia. Wow, thank you. Sue McIntosh, hi GP from South Africa. Wow, wonderful. Tat Futan, namaste from Staten Island. Claudia, hello G. Watching your satsang is a perfect way to spend a Sunday. Greetings from Canada. I think so too. Which reminds me, please like and share. It does help. Ali Risvi, hi from London. Hi Ali. ephonics.se, hi. I think that's Sweden, right? SE. Daryl Sanders, hello from DCMD. Hello, Daryl. Ahmed Mahmoud, hi from Iraq. Oh, wonderful. Hi, Ahmad. Wonderful to have you. Anton, message retracted. Well, hello, Anton. James Breeden, hi, GP. Hope all is well. Blessings from Indiana. That's almost a foreign country. Yeah. Trevor Mann, hi, GP from Canada. Hi, hi there, Trevor. Ali, what stands in the way? Does meditation help? Meditation done correctly is actually spiritual inquiry. Meditation is one of those things that has been kind of usurped by popular culture and turned into, once again, a means to an end. I'm meditating on the things that I want. I'm or stress relief, anxiety relief, and that sort of thing. All of which is good, by the way. You know, the use of it applied in therapeutically, I think perfect, wonderful. This is what we. There's nothing wrong with it, but that's not the meditation that will reveal to you who you are. Notice in all of those, release of stress and anxiety and changing your life and all those things, none of those actually question the sense of self. They want to enhance it, they want to improve it, all well and good, but not question it. When meditation completely turns its attention from all objects, right? Not just focusing attention like on a candle or on your breath, which is the way a lot of it starts, but then sinking even more deeply, becoming aware that you are aware of the breath, that you are aware of your thoughts, that you are aware of the sensations happening, and that which is aware is there, even though the thoughts, the emotions, and the sensations are constantly changing. This awareness isn't. It's the same. And so now, internally, we kind of withdraw our attention from all objects, both the gross objects of the senses and the subtle objects of thought and feeling. We turn our attention completely from those towards that which is aware of them. That is the genuine, real meditation. That is Zen. That is Vedantic meditation. It is meditating on the meditator, becoming increasingly aware that nothing can be experienced without this background. But this background has no discernible attributes. The moment an attribute is discerned, it's an object, right? An attribute is an object. It has boundaries. It has definition. It has a particular character. It is different from something else. Looking at our genuine experience, we find that our own knowing of things itself is not an object that can be known. And this kind of grabbing your attention, grabbing curiosity is the deepest kind of meditation that there is. That's how meditation helps. When you ask, the question is, what stands in the way? I'm assuming what stands in the way of a full realization of who you are. What stands in the way is believing that you're not that in all the different ways that it appears. If I believe that I'm not something and I'm trying to attain it, I'm on a path, aren't I? There's still some distance. But if I start examining the thought that says I'm not that, and instead looking at the evidence that I already am, meaning even the thought that I'm not that is appearing in the awareness that I actually am, I find that there is no path to it. There's no separation that has to be closed. That existed purely as a belief, is an idea that was believed. And even the idea and vast, empty, spacious, impersonal awareness. How's that, Ollie? Is that good? Great question. Ducks. Hey, Ducks. Ooh, several bites. Hey, GP, I will quote Jordan Peterson on an interesting thought. Even when satisfied temporarily, we remain curious. We live within a framework that defines the present as eternally lacking and the future eternally better. The advantages of this the world so that the intolerable state of the present can be rectified in the future. The disadvantage is chronic unease and discomfort because we always contrast what is with what could be. We have to aim at what could be. I find this an accurate picture of the human condition. What are your thoughts on it? Yes, and it's a subtle one. It is the human condition. It is the nature of suffering. As long as this moment is not okay, we suffer. And we imagine something better than right now. And then we want to work towards it. Now, on a practical level, obviously, there's all sorts of crap going on that could be better. And we could do it. We could easily do it, right? We've just created systems that don't want that to happen. Right? So there is this sense of a constant discontentment, right? That things are going to be better. So the first thing I do is I start questioning the idea of things are going to be better, which means what's wrong with right now? And I mean, really, what's wrong with right now, taking your story out of the picture? Now, this is subtle because it can sound like a justification for all the nasty things that are going on. But let's look at it more deeply. I used to go to Argentina a lot because I was married to a woman from Argentina. And when I would go there and visit there and stay for a while, I was kind of surprised that there weren't any black people there. Very rarely did you see a black person. And I remember a couple of times being with my ex-wife's niece, totally white and blonde haired. Um, uh, she was scared of them. She'd see one and she would actually become afraid. And I thought it was bigoted. And, at first I thought, this is really a horrible thing. This shouldn't be this way. But then I realized that the reason there's not a lot of blacks there, is because they never had a slave trade. Oh, that's why. It isn't something because they're bigoted or prejudiced or something. It's because the main way in which blacks came to America was because they were enslaved. Now, years later, right, slowly, genuine integration and understanding is taking place, and we're attempting to create a multiracial culture, or multiracial cultures, which is a really good thing, right? So out of bad things, good things often arise. I look back on my own childhood, and it was abysmal. And yet I recognize that it was exactly the way it was that created in me the hunger for spiritual truth, the willingness to go after it, and and to infect me with a certain kind of curiosity, as well as become really, really intimately knowledgeable about how conditioning works and how it affects the mind and how it affects our self-image. So I can look at that and say, that was all wrong, that shouldn't have happened, right? But that's only from one perspective. When I look at all the horrible things going on in the world right now, I know that what's really happening is this sense of a separate self with all of the egotism and the greed and the stupidity and the brutality and the ignorance that goes with it is becoming increasingly pronounced. The, the dead end we've gotten ourselves into is becoming just painfully apparent. So is this a bad thing? Imagining an idyllic future and even working towards that, is that really a better thing? You have to say yes and no. Now, spiritually, we have to come to the point where we see everything through the eyes of awareness, in which case anything that you experience is being experienced by open, spacious, fearless, untouchable awareness. Like the space you're in right now, right? The space you are in right now, if the house you are sitting in, it was demolished, would the space be affected? Was it affected when the house was built? When the trees that were there were mowed down and this building put up? Was space affected by that? Again, this is not a promotion for indifference. Of course, on a practical level, I speak out against these things every chance I get. People criticize me. Well, you're not supposed to take a position, and then you criticize capitalism. Of course I do. I criticize anything that isn't reflecting love. But simultaneously, I have to step back, because if I get completely engaged in that, I will lose my own sense of peace and contentment, and then I'll have nothing to offer except more of the same. So, and at the root of it all, the root of this sense of dissatisfaction is imagining yourself to be somebody you're not, which is all the point that all these speakers, including Jordan Peterson, completely miss, because they take a psychological approach to it rather than a spiritual approach to it. It is, I can only feel discontent and lack when I have identified with a sense of self that is limited and lacking. When I'm identified with the awareness in which it is all happening, I find boundlessness. I find no borders. I find no reactive patterns. I'm aware of reactive patterns, but none of them are myself. They're simply what being seen. And in that seeing, I bring to these reactive patterns an environment of safety and peace that resolve them. So I hope that covers it. Um, so it is the, the non-duality is this beautiful flow between, in any given moment, we just don't say, oh, everything is okay, this is just the way it is, awareness is awareness, and it doesn't matter. That's outrageous. Of course it matters. If I see somebody abusing a child, and when I see about the huge income equality in the world, some people living like pharaohs and other people begging for food. It's immoral. It's irrational. It's insane, and I'm going to say so. Right? Of course it is. simultaneously, I'm aware of myself as beyond all opposites. So it is the perfect reality manifesting itself in the highest expression possible in any given moment. So it is not a withdrawing from, it is an engagement with, but you're not engaging as a finite self trying to fix things. You're engaging as the infinite perfection of awareness, bringing its power to bear, its creative freedom to bear, that makes genuine resolution of these things take place. I hope that explains. It's very, very subtle, and you'll always find people on one side or another. You'll find a lot of non-dual teachers say it doesn't matter, nobody's being hurt, nothing's actually happening, and that is neo-Advaita nonsense. It is the closing of a heart. It's the justification of the egoic mind usurping non-dual terms in order to justify its basically selfish position of I don't give a shit. To put it bluntly. So hope that satisfies you, ducks. Thank you for that. David Rose. So much of our suffering is caused from our unjust social system. As Zen teacher David Loy points out, socially created dukkha. Are you familiar with David Loy, and how do you feel about this? I'm not familiar with David Loy, but I think what I just said um, speaks to that. Yes, we're creating our own suffering. Even the people who are sitting on top, that small percentage, I understand now it's something like there's 9 people who control more wealth than the bottom half of the population of the world. 9 people, or like 26 people, have more than 4 billion people. In the United States, there's 3 people that have more than the bottom half. 3 people more than 200 million people. This is immoral. It's stupid. And even they are suffering. They've blotted it out. They've got various kinds of philosophies, and we've got all sorts of wingnut, Christian preachers on TV that are justifying this madness. And yes, we're creating it ourselves. We have made a culture that is cruel, is ignorant, it's barbaric, it doesn't honor life, it doesn't honor individuality, it wants to turn you into a machine. This is everything he says is absolutely true. Where does it come from? What is its origin? It is the amplification of the assumption of being a separate self. That assumption of being a separate self creates the ego. The ego is me and you. The feeling of lack is there. In some people, that feeling of lack becomes desperation. In others, it becomes hoarding. So somebody has $10 billion, they're not satisfied. I know a guy, not the sharpest tool in the toolbox, really, but through a nice turn of events, he ended up with about he had a business, and things came together, and he sold his business, had like $80 million, and this was 20 years ago, right? So it was a big chunk of money. What did he want? He wanted he wanted to get into the 9 figures. He wanted 200 million. And he did everything he could. He ended up losing almost everything he had trying to get to this next level. But if he had been successful, what would have happened? A billion. I got to be a billionaire now. It is an insatiable addiction. It's no different than addiction to heroin or to gambling or to shopping. It is an addiction. These guys suffer from an addiction. They are insatiable. And even though everything they want, they get, right? One would think that would be satisfying at a certain point. Jesus, I don't need any more. money, I'm done. Let somebody else do it. But they don't think, because that's all they have. That is an addiction. The super wealthy are addicted to their achievements, to their accomplishments, to winning, to getting more. And so they too are suffering. Greed, greed is suffering. And yet we want to hold all of them responsible. And they are. They're controlling things, they're manipulating things, they're doing incredibly horrible things, sending kids off to war, telling them it's about some just cause and it's only about profit. This is insanity, and it's immoral. They do it because they're addicted. They can't help it, and they have all sorts of justifications for it, to say that it's okay. So yes, the origin of that, right, when greed takes the stage, which is inevitable when you have the sense of a separate self, me, then I've got to get my needs met from the outside world. Therefore, I'm now in a relationship, oftentimes an antagonistic relationship with the outside world. And some people have a natural ability to get more than others do, plus a natural feeling of of temporary satisfaction when they do. And we honor them. We honor the captains of industry. We honor the ones who are always that always win. And so the essence of it is, you want to nip it in the bud. If you really want to get to this to the soul of it and eradicate it in the world, you have to eradicate it from yourself. You have to see within yourself the operation of this ongoing energetic belief in a separate self, and completely eradicate it into your own sense of peace and happiness. And that will be the light that lights the way out of this miasma of completely manufactured, unnecessary suffering that the entire world is going through. Not just humans. We're putting the planet through it. We're putting animals through it. We're putting nature through it. It is suffering on an unparalleled scale. And of course, is the harbinger of its end, because it cannot be sustained. So the key is, find your own peace. Eradicate the separate self from you. As Christ said, take the beam out of your own eye, and then you'll see clearly to remove the sliver from your brother's. Ah, my legs are falling asleep. I'm not a yogi. Oh, thank you for that, Dux. Beautiful. And thank you, David Rose, for letting me continue on that. There must be justice in our hearts. If there's going to be justice, our world becomes just. And to me, just and compassion and love are all synonymous. Every you know, Christians often just weep over they can't have the 10 commandments on the walls of the courthouse and the city buildings. And I say, well, how about, that's the Old Testament law, eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. How about posting, blessed are the merciful, in all of our courts? How about posting huge signs, blessed are the peacemakers, at the Pentagon? I would support that. Hi, GP from Innovative Shift. Hi, Innovative. John M., could you talk about predestination? Well, it was predestined that I was going to talk about this. Isn't that the idea behind predestination? Everything happens. Predestination, don't confuse that. What do you think about this statement, GP? Don't, oftentimes when you hear something like in non-dual teaching, there is no self, there is no chooser, there's no free will, those kinds of things, which I myself have said. It can become confused. Then immediately mine goes, Well, does that mean it's all predestined? There's no freedom? The thing is that the non-dual perspective is non-dual. It is none of those, right? For something to be predestined, it means somebody had to be there thinking it up and then putting a bunch of things in place to make sure it happened, right? Well, can anybody find that one? Well, we imagine it. It's a god of some sort who's kind of set the whole thing up, like just like a giant movie that he feels like watching, which would really be kind of a bore because there wouldn't be much of a surprise. I know what the ending is, right? It's all predestined. Predestination, the whole idea of free will versus predestination, is a mind game. It's like how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. Neither one of those is true. Neither one of those is genuine. Neither one of those answers the deep question of life, which is where did this all come from? How is it happening? We see it in terms of time and space, and therefore we think of this is a flow of events that took place at a particular that started at a given moment is going to go and hit the eschaton, right? And then it'll be over the end of time, the end of the flow of events. That is not non-dual teaching. Non-dual teaching is timeless. Look at the world as timeless. That is, it is not a flow of events like a river passing in front of your eyes. It is a constantly produced image in the mind of God. Or you could say awareness, aware of itself, is creation, which did not happen in time, is happening now. This moment is being spontaneously generated. Like when you watch a movie, whether you're watching it on a computer screen or you're watching it on a big screen, uh, what you're seeing are a series of images appearing in front of the lens. So the image is being constantly projected. And then in our minds, we put in the story, we put the circumstances, the protagonist, the antagonist, the love story, the climax, the denouement, the whole deal. All of that's taking place in the mind, seeing it as if it was in time. Take time out of the picture, which you have to if you're looking at it from the non-dual perspective. Is anything predestined? No. Is there free will and choosing? No. The guy playing jazz, the great improviser playing jazz, isn't predestined to play a particular set of notes. If that was the case, it wouldn't be improvisation. Neither is he choosing them, or she. Shouldn't leave it at that. So many great jazz players, musicians now are women. It's wonderful to see. Anyway, are they choosing it? Are they choosing that note? Well, that means I'm there. Oh, it's going to be this note or this. That's not improvisation. This moment happening spontaneously, without a past and without a future. We then the spontaneous thing happens. I look at it. It's similar to what happened over there, and I create in my mind the illusion of time, of some object that started here and is continuing and transforming. There's no object. There's no time. This moment is happening spontaneously, coming out of the infinite intelligence of God. So it's not random, it's not arbitrary. It is infinitely intelligent and creative. It just does not have a past and it doesn't have a future. It is this moment by itself. Now, in that, where's predestination? Poof, gone. Where's free will? Gone. Does that mean that we don't have any free will, right? The mind keeps hopping back and forth. Well, if I don't have free will, I must be predestined. Not predestined, I must have free will. It's neither of those. It is a spontaneous arising out of the infinite creative intelligence that you are. Anybody here has ever had the experience? I'm pretty sure everybody has the experience of all of a sudden just having the intuitive hit. Well, where did that come from? Was it predestined? Boom, it arose. And we recognized it. for what it was, and it cut through the patterns that we get used to, right? Because this moment is like a previous moment with oh, it's a continuation of this. No, it's not. No more than the image on the screen is just a continuation of the previous image. The only reason an image appears on the screen is because that's what's in front of the projector in that moment, or that's what's being lit up on your computer screen in that moment. That's the only reason it's there. It has no past and it has no future. Into the light, out of light, gone. This is the nature of consciousness and creation. This is the nature of manifestation. So what is it all made of? That's the more interesting question. If we're talking about something spontaneously appearing, what is it made of? What am I actually experiencing? What is a thought? What is an image? If I ask you about your dream at night, and I ask, what was your dream made of? It wasn't flesh and blood. There weren't people there. There weren't objects and things. What was that dream made of? As real as it felt, it was made of dream stuff. It was made of mind. So what is this experience? What are the thoughts? This spontaneous moment, what is it made of? It's made of consciousness. Consciousness arising. It's not sitting on the side somewhere, a predestined plan waiting to be implemented by some super being. It's not sitting over there somewhere, right? Nobody's ever seen this repository, the green room for thoughts, which means that the thought has appeared spontaneously in this moment. So what's it made of? Some other substance out there, or is it made of the substance of the viewing, of the knowing of it? Does that answer it for you guys? Okay, Jimmy Kentros, you, seeing all these things go by, you are about to be thrown off. Report. Unwanted hate speech, harassment, and hate speech. Report. You don't really exist anyway. And now I'm just going to remove you. Message reported. Thank you. I'm just going to remove you. Huh? Oh, I think he's already been. Oh, now you've come on as pack crypt. Remove. Done. You're gone. Pack crypt. Remove. This happens every now and then, folks. Don't pay any attention to it. So many people are watching. 800. I don't actually trust those numbers. I don't have any idea what that's about, because I'm not seeing that many questions and stuff. I'm not Pack Crypt. You're gone. Remove. And what else? Put user in. No. Hide user on this channel. Dump on. Yeah. This is a hack of some sort. Somebody, I have no idea how this happens. I'd be very happy if there are 813 people watching right now, but I know that they're not. Let's see here. Let's go back to the real questions, folks. If anybody can help me get rid of these guys, I'm supposed to be able to just hide user on the channel to get rid of them. These messages will be hidden and remove. Completely remove. Okay. Okay, Delgado, my friend. IGP, could you explain what does this statement that in order to change our reality, we must change the picture in our minds? Is our reality our thoughts, ideas, images? Yes, that's all there is to it. Is there any? Let's look at it now. Now, there's two parts of this, okay? Two parts of this I want to take up. Oh, okay. Anybody know how to get rid of these guys before they even come? Yeah, I guess just. Uh, okay. Yeah, just going to have to ignore them all. It really sucks. If there is actually a human being and not a machine that's watching this, I would just invite you to ask yourself, what is the pleasure you get out of this? Isn't there something you could be doing with your time right now which would really be useful, helpful, valuable to you? Something that would bring more joy and power and creativity into your life. Although I doubt if there's even anybody here. There's probably some kind of a bot. So anyway, Delgado, in order to change our reality, now I'm going to approach this from two different ways, okay? Because there's two things here. One is, what's the nature of reality, which you're saying, right? Your question there about, is our reality just our thoughts, ideas, and images? And then there is the desire to change them, right? Because they're very different, right? Let's first look at what is the nature of our experience. The non-dual approach is that there is nothing outside of your knowing of it. Your perceiving of a thing and the thing are not two, they are one. The material model is that the object I perceive exists independent from my perceiving of it. Therefore, it has a bunch of attributes, a bundle of attributes, which I am perceiving. Those attributes belong to it, they are inherent in it. In other words, it has self existence. That's the material model. And therefore, there's this material explanation of the way perception works, so that I see it with my eyes, I hear it, I feel it. And in my mind, then, I give it the status of being an objective, self existent entity or object, be it a person, place, thing, whatever it happens to be, or even a thought or a feeling. Subtler, but they still have this sense of having an independent existence. Non-duality says this isn't so, and it invites you to look for yourself. And this is the key, very important to this whole thing. If you look at your direct experience, you cannot find any evidence whatsoever of the existence objectively of what it is you are perceiving. You have no evidence of something with self existence outside of your perception of it. In order to validate that, you would have to be able to step out of your perceiving and witness you perceiving and the object. But of course, you can't do that. You're simply shifting the point of perception. Now, looking at that from that point of view, it becomes painfully obvious, self-evident, that there is no evidence whatsoever for the external existence of anything. Now, that direct insight runs smack into the universally held belief that it does. A universally held belief that not only is Not only is held by pretty much everybody in the world, it's the basis of all our politics, our economics, our science, our religion, our medicine. All of it is based on that assumption. And that assumption has been programmed into you right from the get-go, because your parents believed it, the schools believed it, the churches believed it, everybody believed it. That model gives rise to a separate God that you have a relationship with, who lives outside of you, external to yourself. And it is never even thought to question whether or not that's true. It's just assumed. And yet, when anybody looks closely enough, just takes a moment and examines it, they say, you say, um, can you actually find concrete evidence that what you are experiencing exists independently from your experience of it? And the answer is no. Not only you, nobody has. Nobody's ever produced it. Nobody can. And yet the evidence that you are experiencing it is overwhelming. It's cut and dry. Yes, of course, I'm experiencing that. So then the question is, okay, if it doesn't exist out there as an object, it has no self-existence, or as Buddha would say, it has no self, then what am I experiencing? I am experiencing, it's undeniable. There is a me that is having an experience. There's stuff welling up. That's undeniable. So now, ruling out the material model, I go, what then am I experiencing? Nothing exists outside my perceiving of it. It has no being until I know it, which means its being is my knowing of it. Is there anything to any object you perceive other than your perceiving of it? Is a thought have any existence separate from your knowing of it? So it then becomes clear that everything you are experiencing is an appearance in consciousness. And believing that it exists independently of the consciousness is the mischief maker. It's the cause of all the problems. And in order for that to be, we then imagine this substance out of which it made, because it has to be made from something. And that substance we gave the name of matter. And now we are going constantly deeper and deeper into this idea of matter, trying to find something that is indivisible and changeless and the essence of the entire thing. Because there's got to be something here, right? Everything is an appearance of something else. The cell is an appearance of the molecules, which are an appearance of the atoms, which are an appearance of the subatomic particles, which are an appearance of the quantum, which is an appearance of the field. All appearances. What is? Matter is an imaginary idea. It is a concept projected on experience to try to explain the independent existence of something which does not have an independent existence. So, oh, I missed a question here. I'll get back to you. So, knowing that, the knowing of a thing is the thing, you start looking at your beliefs. What do I believe? Because what I believe becomes experience by the knowing of it. Whatever is believed appears in some form. So that's the nature of our actual experience. it is nothing but consciousness. This non-duality is the consciousness only model of the universe, in direct opposition to the current scientific paradigm of the matter only, that consciousness is a derivative of matter. Consciousness says, sorry, I was here first. There is no matter. That is an illusion. That is a concept projected upon experience and does not hold up to scrutiny, even your own scientific scrutiny. It doesn't hold up to. And I am sure that in the next 10 years, you're going to hear more scientists saying consciousness is it. That there is no matter. There's some saying that now. You'll run across them occasionally, but the vast majority can't say that. It's just so outside of things, they'll lose their grants and all the other kinds of stuff. But you're going to hear that more and more. Now, the other thing, and they're part of this. In order to change our reality, we must change the picture in our minds. That implies something else, right? A desire to change your experience. Now, once you realize that experience is formed by your beliefs, the immature approach is, oh, I want to have a better experience, so I'm going to change my beliefs. Right? That's the law of attraction and manifestation and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of the remedial view because it hasn't gone into the deep. It hasn't really seen the implications of what it's seen, because it's witnessed that my thoughts create experience and all that. I've showed you how that works and why. The deeper thing is, holy shit. This is an existential insight of cosmic proportions. And then to reduce that is, well, how do I manifest a house or more money or something? It is profane. It's an abomination. It's taking an existential insight of this magnitude and reducing it, trying to reduce it down to where the ego simply gets what it wants, right? So to look at that, you become, well, what's really true then, right? If you want to experience the truth has to become the focus of your attention, right? If you want to master a skill, the skill becomes the focus of your attention. You want to know what's true, that becomes the focus of your attention. So, and you'll see how this idea of the independently existing self, self-inherent self-existence of all object infects all of our thinking on every level of human endeavor. And so it becomes simply a matter of understanding, oh, this is really true, and then let that take you over. And don't let the mind turn it into then some kind of a technique to get what you want, right? Because the you that's trying to get what you want is also an object in the mind. Who is the real you that's looking at that? And does that have that same kind of desire? Does it feel a need to change anything? I think I have to let it go with that. Boy, we're getting a lot of questions here. And I have another 20 minutes here. And I do actually have to end it at 3 or very close to it today. I can't just kind of go on as I have in the past. Soliaris, I skipped you. I'm sorry about that. I see it now. Hi, GP. Nice to be here again. What comes after realizing awareness? How do you live life seeing through our separate self if so much of our previous actions and motivations were based around them? Well, your motivations and actions aren't based around that anymore. It goes from trying to get to giving. It goes from attempting to acquire to a love of sharing. Right? It goes from a defensive posture to an expressive posture. Right? It's not. Look, any time. Have you ever been in love? Right? All you want to do is give to your beloved. Right? That's what it's like. It's very simple. It's very simple. You find that when we feel separate, we feel afraid. That's when the withdrawing takes place. That's where the defensiveness is. That's where the selfishness is. That's where hoarding would be. But if that sense is gone, that sense of lack, that sense of fear is gone, what happens? It just completely releases your natural, outgoing, creative, compassionate, loving, heartfelt, altruistic um, interest. And we've all felt that. When we're really feeling good about things and things are really, there's just this desire, this outward expanding desire that takes place. So the realization of your true being, the true awareness, is not just a moment. Right? Boom, that's it. Ta-da, it's over. I even read several different versions of Buddha's enlightenment, and there was this period of integration. For him, it happened very, 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 very quickly. It was over a month, right? But there was a period of integration, of a reorienting of the life. If you hadn't had some kind of an awakening already, you wouldn't be listening to this program. You wouldn't be listening to satsang. It would have no appeal to you. The awakened part of you, or I could say the real you awakening, the symptom of awakening is an interest in this, having a question like that arise. So you can just put it back to yourself. You have a certain amount of awakening. Well, what comes after? A deepening of that and an expanding of that, and allowing that awakening to seep into the entire system, eradicating this belief in a material universe, external objects, eradicating the belief of yourself as one of those objects, this form in this universe that's separate from all forms. And noticing that it isn't just a thought. You can actually feel it in the body, right? When something happens and you can feel the body recoiling, that's the body acting out as if it was a separate self, right? Even though now there's a certain amount of awakening, you know that it isn't. You're conscious of the fact that it isn't. Now you can consciously engage with the energy that still thinks it is. And that's the tantric side of the path. The Vedantic is what discovers the truth. The tantric is what is the embodiment of that truth. It's the living of that. It's going from wisdom to love, right? Wisdom to compassion, from understanding to engagement. You know, if from going inward and then going back outward, going up the mountain and then coming back down the mountain again. That so that's the pattern for it. That's what, and it happens naturally. So the first thing is to recognize that you're already awake. It's nothing you need to attain. It just needs to be deepened and and in and the magnitude of it increasingly discovered. You're simply moving more and more deeply into it, but you've never not been that. It's what you've always been, right? So you can't ever lose it. You can't ever mistake it. So now it becomes this most wonderful opportunity to re-examine every thought, every feeling, going, what is the origin of that thought? Is that thought pointing me back towards what I actually am, the awakened awareness? Or is it is it appearing as an embodiment of that sense of a separate self? And it becomes really clear. Okay, well then it isn't that. I can just turn away. I can just turn away from that. That's what Christ was referring to when he said, a fountain cannot send forth in the same place both sweet water and bitter, which means that if you're tasting that bitter water, it's not the same fountain. The bitter water arises out of the false belief of being a separate self, whereas the perfume of the true self is always peace, happiness, compassion, openness, giving, and that becomes the mission. That's the integration point of just seeing through the layer upon layer of conditioned patterns that have gotten put in place, all based on the false notion of the separate self, and compassionately dissolving them. That's the next step in the path, my friend. John N. Things only happen because the circumstances allow it, and the amount of things required for any moment to happen, the mind is incapable of comprehending. Yes, beautiful. Thank you for that. That's absolutely true. Yeah. In order for us to make up this idea of cause and effect and time and all of that, we have to just completely rule out so much. We have to reduce experience down to this narrow little linear thing. But if you really stop and look at all the things that have had to take place on multiple timelines, multiple dimensions, in order to make this moment happen, it is completely beyond what the mind can grasp. Nisargadatta said it best. He said, everything causes everything. I'm going to check through here. Okay. John O. N. I've got another question. GP, does the understanding, compassion, love, thought, suffering, all the things we discuss, inevitable when some desires truth? Yes. The desire for truth is not a personal possession. You say, oh, I have acquired a desire of truth. The desire of truth has arisen, and now the sense of a separate self has said, I have a desire for truth now. The desire for truth is truth. It is truth appearing as your life. It is not you getting a desire for truth. The desire for truth is pushing you out of the way and revealing itself. And yes, with that will come a natural attraction towards compassion, towards quiet, towards peacefulness, towards patience. All of that will happen. But the desire for truth, the desire of truth, is truth's desire. That is the appearance of truth. Oh, I so want to bring this home to you. It isn't something that a person gets. It is the truth of being appearing that is dissolving the person. The desire arising and the consciousness aware of that desire arising is the truth. Only the truth can recognize the truth. If you say, this desire for truth is arising, the separate self cannot recognize that. Darkness cannot recognize light. It just disappears in the light. The desire for truth is truth, recognized by truth. The feeling of truth. It is truth. So it's not appearing to someone, it's appearing to itself, and it is dissolving the someone you thought you were. And of course, it is going to bring with it all of the qualities that we associate with that, all the qualities we associate with a mature, developed spiritual individual. But if we attribute those qualities to the individual, we've missed the boat. The individual is transparent to those qualities, like the window is transparent to light. We don't sit and go, wow, what a beautiful window. We say, oh my God, what a beautiful day. The real shining through of an individual of these qualities takes all the attention away from the individual and all on the qualities. Although they get very associated because the one is the expression of the other, but it no longer see them as some kind of a personal possession. So there isn't somebody who's wise or somebody who is loving or somebody who is kind. Wisdom, the infinite intelligence of wisdom, the infinite compassionate of the goddess heart, is appearing as this particular form, and its real nature, its real substance, its real character is that the true intelligent nature. The form will come and go, but that perfect infinite nature is forever. It just is. Thank you very much, GP. You were amazing. Thank you, Delgado. Alessandra, hi, GP. Hello from Monterey. Hi there, Alessandra. Love you, man. From Maestro. Hi, Maestro. Namaste. Don't know if it's me today, but it seems like you're on fire. Everything you're saying is sinking in on a deeper level. Thank you. Well, let's just say it's both of us, right? Because I mean, I've got to deliver it, and you've got to receive it. But the one delivering and the one receiving, same one. It is truth that recognizes truth. That's what I was just saying before. It is truth that recognizes truth. Your nature is truth. That's how you can recognize truth. How do you know something is loving or unloving? You know it because you're love. That's how you can tell. That's how you know. I am love. So that's how I know I can tell the difference. And getting back to even what I was talking about before about dealing with stuff that's going on in the world, that's how you know that's not loving. That's not an opinion. Our modern world and um, our modern world is completely lost in the idea of a merely relative truth. That's why we can have the incredible propaganda that the U.S. media is from beginning. There's no truth in it. It's completely propaganda, because there's this belief, especially amongst the elite, that there is no truth. You can create it, and if I can just convince you and put this in your mind and basically brainwash you, that's the truth. That there is no absolute truth. Um, it's nonsense. We know instinctively. We know. Yes, we can be fooled for a while, right? The more we identify with the separate self, the more we are identified with beliefs. The more we want to have one belief true over another, right? But on the level of belief, it is true. There is nothing. It is all relative. But there is an absolute truth, and that absolute truth is love. So I can look at any circumstance and say, that's wrong, that's right. This is better, this is worse. And I can say that with utter confidence because I know it's not relative. Beauty, I can tell the difference between ugliness and beauty, right? That's inherent. We all know it. We're all capable of that. And so I can't remember what the question was that I was answering about that. Um, right. Truth recognizes itself. Love recognizes itself. When you are seeing beauty, it is your beauty recognizing itself in something else. It is your love recognizing love. It is your truth recognizing truth. It is your creativity recognizing creativity. Now, there's a thought that might, because the thought is there of a separate self, it seems like it's a possession, that's beautiful. But is it? As I was talking earlier about, there's nothing objective out there. The attribute of beauty does not belong to the object you're looking at calling beauty. It is your beauty being reflected back to you. You are seeing an image of the beauty that is you. Is this clear for you guys? I am running out of time, so I'm just scanning through the questions here. You're on fire. I'm glad it's thinking in. John says, I'm having a difficult time with the concept of the mirror. In what you see in the world is mirroring your mind. Okay, well then don't make a big deal out of it. That's not important. It's actually secondary information that'll very naturally become quite clear the more you see yourself as consciousness and not as a separate self, as an object in space-time. The more you see yourself as consciousness, the more obvious it becomes that there's nothing but consciousness. And therefore, starting from the point of view of of being a separate self, and then trying to see the world as a mirror is impossible because it becomes another object. But when you have a dream at night, it's everybody in the dream is you. Even they may be friends, they may be people you know, right? But it's all you, right? They're not there. Every one of those characters in the dream is yourself. And what is the substance of that? It's your own mind. And so what is that dream? It is a mirror of you. Everybody there is a mirror of you. Well, we can grasp that in the dream, because in the dream we can see there is no separate self. There is nobody I'm talking to. There's no objective reality. There's no object I'm holding, right? It is completely a subjective experience. We are simply convinced that this, our waking state, is an objective experience, and it's not. But it isn't the best practice, to for lack of a better term, isn't to try to see how the world is a mirror, but to see how you are nothing but consciousness, that you are conscious awareness, to establish yourself as the consciousness that is aware and not what you are aware of, and deepening that is what will eventually open the door. Well, that will become crystal clear, and you really won't even have to struggle with it. You want to try. So I wanted to do that. Okay, one more question I'm going to take. This is the last one, from Inner Aesthetics. Hi, GP. I have a question regarding assisting people close to us that are deep in suffering but wanting to make changes in their life. What are your thoughts on helping others without getting in the way of their own personal growth and path? Thank you. Thanks much, and good vibe. Thank you, sir. Well, boy, first off, become free yourself. Right? Become happy yourself. Become content yourself. And that means a lot to do with first knowing who you are. It's really just accepting things the way they are, allowing things to take their own course. Now, of course, oops, sorry, bumping the mic. Of course, when I see somebody suffering, if it's somebody, close, family and the like, or somebody I don't even meet, it hurts. Of course it does. That's your humanness. Love is responding to suffering. It can't help it. But love is also wisdom. So while love would immediately just jump into the fray and do something, wisdom is a little slower. So that what gets done, that is motivated by love, has in it the wisdom of understanding. And sometimes the only thing you can do is just basically sit back and wait. Now, that waiting isn't just idling. Geez, I hope they get it. What you can do is to take the entire thing within yourself. Remember, I said it's all consciousness. So what you are experiencing is consciousness. There is nobody out there suffering. Now, don't take that as indifference. If you do, it becomes non-dual nonsense. It becomes neo-Advaita, right? But what it does is it starts by first breaking down our conviction that there is a separate self that is suffering. When that is seen through, the manifestation that is being experienced of someone suffering becomes much more transparent. It becomes, you're not reinforcing the very thing that's creating the suffering. In fact, you've created an environment in which the illusion of suffering can begin to dissolve. So when it comes to spiritual healing, I completely eliminate the idea in my mind that there could possibly be a mind other than the one divine intelligence that could suffer or be sick or be ill or be dead or be lacking or be ignorant. Those are all images in my consciousness, are they not? And if they're in my consciousness, it is my job to not give them objective self-existence. This is actually this is the underpinning for for uh, um, Ho'oponopono. Takes the whole thing into itself. Says it's all me. It's all my consciousness. So, when you are in that rarefied atmosphere, um, their own desire to heal and their own desire to end suffering, and that desire in them is truth talking to them. Okay, that desire is truth, right? And that will eventually eradicate all of the things that keep them stuck and open up the door so you or somebody else, or maybe a book, or maybe a passing, who knows, will penetrate that darkness and open the door for them. And very well could be you. So eliminate your suffering because they're suffering, right? And keep yourself open, but be willing to be there with the suffering. That's compassion. It's not a rejection of it. It's not a pushing away. It's not, I don't want to see that. It's being with it and yet not participating in the suffering. Be beyond suffering in your eternal happiness. Okay, I'm going to have to call it for today. And much love to you, G, and everyone. Have a great week. Sarah, thank you, GP, taking the time to share blessings from Suketa. Ava says, thank you, G, for being here and sharing. Got it all. Got it all. Thank you, GP. Have a good one. Oh, God, what a blessing to have you with us. Thank you. Blessing to have you, too. Hey, G, when I look back, I don't recognize myself. It's as if the person died. They did, but they can't really die because they never were born in the first place. The false you just vanished. It's an illusion. There was nobody there really even to die. I miss being in the Matrix sometimes. Yeah, the food tastes really good sometimes. Don't believe that thought for a second, Robert. Yeah, the Matrix is suffering. I don't think you miss suffering. Right? What you miss was never part of the Matrix. That was always the appearance of the true self. So don't get seduced by that. It's not true. All right. Thank you all. I love you all. I'm gonna have to call it for today. Namaste.